Hello. Today we're going to look at doing some age type questions. A lot of these involve quite a lot of algebra, and I find a lot of the time a lot of people struggle with these type of questions. I'm going to show you an approach to work them out algebraically today, but I'll try and use a bit of common sense thinking to help you out with that. So let's have a go at this first one. So we've got Ella. She's going to be 6 years older than her brother Sam. So Ella's the older sibling. And then together we've got the 24 years old, and we'd like to find their ages. Okay, so the best thing to do really with this is to set it up algebraically in terms of their ages. So because we don't know how old both of them are, then what we're going to do is write an algebraic term for one of their ages and then compare that to their other sibling. So if we take Ella first, we just write Ella. It says that Ella is 6 years older than her brother Sam. So I'm going to write Ella and Sam. Ella's the older one. So what I could do is I could call Sam's age X. And then since Ella is going to be 6 years older than her brother Sam, Ella would be Sam's age add 6. So we could write that as X add 6. Now because it says together they are 24 years old, what that means is then if I was to take these two and add them together, that should equal 24. So adding those up first gives me 2x plus 6, and we should make that equal to the total age, which is 24 years from that part of the question. Here we have a plus 6 on the left hand side, so the opposite of adding 6 is to subtract 6. So if we subtract 6 from each side of the equation, we get that 2x equals 18. Now to go from 2x to x, we just need to divide both sides of this by 2, which gives me that x equals 9. Now if you go back, remembering what x was, that was Sam's age, so that means that Sam would be 9. And that means that Ella would actually be 6 years older than that. So adding 6 to 9 gives us 15. So Ella would actually be 15. And if we want to do a little final check, we can. Because he said the total age is 24. So if we do 9 plus 15, that equals 24. So that's looking all good. So I'll leave that there. And we'll have a go at number 6. So these two questions are really similar, so you'll find a very similar approach for this type. You can do these in different ways. So in this one I will actually show you two different ways of doing it. So we have a sister being 4 years younger than her brother. So I'm just going to write sister and brother. Total age is 30. So the sister's younger and the brother's older. So I could call the brother X. And since the sister's 4 years younger, that would actually be 4 less than the brother's age. So X minus 4. Then what I need to do is add these together, since it says total age is 30. So if I add those, I get 2x minus 4, and that should equal 30 years. Now the opposite of subtracting 4 is to add 4. So if I add 4 to both sides, I'll get that 2x is equal to 34. And if I then divide both sides of this by 2, it'll give me that x is 17. So that would mean that the brother's age would be 17, and the sister would be 4 years younger than that, which would make her 13. And it said the total age was 30, so if I did 13 plus 17, you'll see it gives me 30 years as required. So that's one way of doing it, and I'll show you another way now. So last time I wrote the brother's age as X. This time I could actually write the sister as being X instead this time. If the sister's going to be 4 years younger than the brother, then that means the brother's older by 4 years, right? So I could write the brother as being x plus 4. You'll see it works out the same. If I add their ages together here, I've got 2x plus 4, and that should equal to 30. The difference here is this time we have a plus 4 on the left side, so we have to do the opposite of adding 4, which is to subtract 4 from both sides, which will end up being 2x equal to 26. Divide both sides of this by 2, and again you'll find that x is equal to 13. Obviously the x value is different, but you actually called the sister x this time, so that makes her 13, and the brother would be 4 years older than that, which would be 17. Again, you can see 13 add 17 gives us 30, and they're the same age as we got previously. So just to show you, there's different ways of doing it. You can either think of the sister as x or the brother as x, and then just write the other sibling's age depending on what the information says. Okay, so that's that. What I'd ask you to do, okay, is I'll ask you to have a go at doing number 10 on your own. So, number 10. Pause the video, see if you can do it yourself, and then have a look in a minute for the answer. Okay, so if you've tried that out, we'll go through it right now. So we've got a brother who's 10 years older than his sister. Their total age is 38. Find their ages. So again, I'll write B just for brother, S for sister. Again, I can call the brother X if I want to. So brother is 10 years older than his sister, so the brother's the older one. So that means the sister would have to be 10 years younger. So that would be x minus 10. Okay? And if we add these two together, we get 2x minus 10, and that will be equal to 38. Opposite of subtracting 10 is to add 10. So adding 10 to both sides gives me 48 here. Okay. And then if I then divide both sides of this by 2, it will give me that x is equal to 24. So that means the brother will be 24 years old and the sister will be 14 years old. If I did 24 add 14, you should see it gives me 38. Okay? Which is what was required. So maybe you did it that way. You might have done it the other way, which I'll just have a go at now. So if you instead wrote the sister as being x, remembering that the sister is younger, so the brother would have to be 10 years older, written like that. This time adding these together gives me 2x plus 10, and that's still equal to 38. The opposite of adding 10 is to subtract 10, which will give me that 2x is equal to 28. And then dividing both sides by 2 gives me x is equal to 14. So that means the sister's 14 and the brother's 10 years older, so he's 24. Again, same ages. So check that with your own answer. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at doing a harder one. So I will actually do number 11 here. You just crop that out. So we can just really just focus on doing that one. Okay. Okay. So here's a harder one. So we've got two siblings differ in age by 6 years. In 8 years' time, the older sibling will be 4/3 of the younger sibling's age. Find their current ages. Okay, so the approach for this is quite similar. It's just that you would have to write your equation slightly differently. And we need to think about it quite a lot. So 2 siblings here, differ in age by 6 years. So that means one of them is going to be 6 years older than the other. Okay? So we'll treat that situation first. So basically we're just going to work with this first line to start with. So 2 siblings differ in age by 6 years. If I call one of the siblings X, then I can call the other sibling X plus 6. Okay? It says in 8 years' time, the older sibling will then be 4/3 of the younger sibling's age. So what I then need to do is I need to think about what happens in 8 years' time. So that means I need to add 8 to both of these ages. So if I add 8 to this one, it's going to give me X plus 8. And if I add 8 to that one, adding the 8 to the 6 gives me 14. So I'll have X plus 14. So that's how old they're going to be in 8 years' time. And then it's also telling us that the older sibling will then be 4/3 of the younger sibling's age. So the older sibling will be this one, right? Because he's always 6 years older. Okay? So the older sibling is 4/3 of the younger sibling's age. So how do we write that as an equation? The way we're going to write that is that X plus 8, which is the younger sibling's age, it's saying the older sibling is 4/3 of the younger sibling's age. So that means if I take the younger sibling's age and I multiply it by 4/3, that would then give me the older sibling's age. Okay. So a lot of people might be wondering how to deal with this. The best way really is just to multiply it out. So if I did, I'll show you 2 ways actually. So the first way, you can just literally multiply the 4/3 by everything in the bracket. So that can be 4/3 X, and then multiplying 4/3 by 8. 4 times 8 gives me 32, so it'd be 32 over 3. And that would be equal to X plus 14. Then we can take away an X from both sides, which gives me 1/3 X over here, plus 32 over 3 equals 14. And then if I take 32 over 3 from both sides, it gives me that 1/3 X equals 14, take away 32 over 3. And times both sides of that, times the left and right by 3 gives me that X is equal to, what's 3, 14, so that would be 42. And that will finally give me that X equals 10. So X equals 10, so that person would be 10 there, and that person would be 16 there. So they're the current ages that they asked for. So there's one way of doing it. I'll also show you another way. Most people probably won't like that way, so I'll show you a slightly different approach. What else you could do is you could actually take this equation here and actually multiply both sides by 3 straight away, which would give you which looks a bit nicer, I would say. And then you can multiply both sides out, giving you 4x plus 32 here is equal to 3x plus 42. You see the 32 and 42 are there again. Take away 3x from both sides, that gives me x add 32 is equal to 42. Taking 32 from both sides gives me that x is equal to 10. Which is therefore the same answer as what you got before. So that would still result in the younger sibling being 10 and the older sibling being 16.